I want to talk to you about turning producers into reproducers. Now let's review for a moment. I'm talking about the 5 steps that you and I need to take these people that can produce and help them to develop other people until they begin to reproduce. And we've already talked in the last session about the first step. That's the I model step. This is where I become the example. Remember, people do what people see. That's number 1. The second step in developing leaders around you is I mentor. Now, I not only visualize leadership for them, I help internalize leadership with them by becoming their mentor. Ralph Emerson said, "Our chief want in life is somebody who shall make us do what we can." In other words, Emerson said what my friend Fred Smith said when he had spent over 3 years just mentoring CEOs in the Dallas area. And after 3 years, he looked at him one day as this small group of about 20 CEOs and said, "Look," he said, "I spent 3 years with you. I think it's time for me to move on and for you to move on." They called him back about 4 or 5 months later and had a kind of a celebration for his mentoring time. And they gave him a beautiful, beautiful, expensive glass. And on it, it had these words, "He stretched us." That's what mentors do. Mentors stretch people. They take them probably where they would never go on their own and help them develop capacity and potential. So there are 2 questions. If you're an apprentice, in other words, if you're in search of somebody to mentor you, there are 2 questions for the apprentice. And that is, number 1, capacity. Can he or she do what is required? That's very important. And the second is commitment. Will he or she do what is required? In other words, when I'm looking for somebody to develop and I'm looking for an apprentice as a mentor, I've got to ask myself the question, do they have capacity? Do they have commitment? You can have capacity and not have commitment and never achieve what you need to achieve. You could have commitment and not capacity and not achieve. You've got to have both. So as a mentor, when I look at the apprentice and I ask myself, should I pour my life into them, I ask the capacity question, I ask the commitment question. Now, 2 questions for the mentor. Number 1 is experience. Has he or she had proper experience? And number 2 is excellence. Has he or she modeled excellence? Do they not only have good experience so that they can teach out of the wisdom of their life, but do they achieve with excellence? Do they do it right? And if I'm going to have somebody mentor me, I want to make sure that they've had experience. I want to make sure that they're a person of excellence. And in both of those questions, the one that you would ask for the apprentice that you're going to mentor, or the one that you would ask for the mentor who's going to mentor you, these questions can never be not either or. It's not one or the other. It has to be both. Now, there are 2 questions for the apprentice and the mentor. If you're really going to have the kind of mentoring relationship you need to have, the first question deals with relationships. Are they compatible? Am I compatible with the person that's going to mentor me? Am I compatible with the person I'm going to mentor? And the second one is respect. Is there mutual respect? And these questions that I've just given you in a mentoring relationship, well, I want to say this. The earlier that you can answer these questions, the better you're going to be. Because one of the mistakes I think we make in mentoring relationships is we wait too long to ask these kind of questions. And we get into a mentoring relationship 3, 4, 5 months and we're saying, this is not working. This is not good. Maybe there's no respect there. Maybe we're not clicking. Maybe there's no relationships. Let me give you the characteristics of an effective mentor. Maturity. That's nothing more than the wisdom that comes only with age. Now, let me just make sure we understand. Added years to your life don't give you maturity. So just because you're getting older doesn't mean you're getting more mature. Isn't that true? Mm-hmm. So when I speak of maturity, don't look at every person that has age and say they're mature. Remember, experience is not what is our best teacher. It's evaluated experience. That's where the maturity, that's where we learn the lessons back up and say, oh, boy, that was a bad deal. Shouldn't have done that. Oh, what did I learn from that? How can I change? Okay. Another characteristic of an effective mentor is compassion. This is the ability to hear what another is attempting to put into words without judging. Compassion is the ability to listen to a person and hold your hand and not always say what you know will have to be said later on, or not always do what you know will have to be done later on. Just compassion, an unconditional love for that person that you're mentoring. Number 3, genuine respect for others and their stories and their times. A respect that begins with reflection upon my own story. And next is the ability to keep things confidential so that I'm a safe person, or the person I'm going to is safe, so I can really express myself, because it's only in the open, honest conversation and expression that you can really help people. The first responsibility of any person in a mentoring relationship is to get rid of the veneer and get down to the real. Not the ideal or not the role playing, but what is the real person. Self-disclosure is the willingness to share parts of one's own journey when appropriate, and willingness to be honest. And it's so important, especially for the mentor, to do a lot of self-disclosure. Here's what I have discovered. If I'm to expect the person I'm mentoring to be open and honest with me, I have to be open and honest with them. And so therefore, here's what I've always said: mentors must go first. And when I begin to see them starting to do some self-disclosure, I need to come back and share with them my experience and be open and honest and give that self-disclosure also. And then finally, the ability to evaluate a person's development level, and this is really important. So stay with me for these next 3 minutes. People respond differently to development, and I have found from personal experience that each person who does grow will plateau at one of the 6 levels of development. And this is a chart taken out of my book, Developing the Leaders Around You, which is this training series. And I wanted to take just a moment to make sure that we understand. And if you start at the bottom, at level number 1, the pool is the biggest there. And as you can see that the higher you go, the fewer the people, the smaller the pool. But whenever I'm going to mentor somebody, hopefully there's going to be some growth. Now, many times, sadly, people stop in pool number 1. Level number 2 is growth that makes them capable to do their job. And obviously, in a training session in companies and organizations like yours, there has to be enough good mentoring that they become very efficient in their own job. Level number 3, though, the pool can get smaller because fewer people go up. This is growth that makes them able to reproduce themselves in their job. This is huge. This is where you're developing leaders around you again. This is where you're not only helping them to do their job well, but you're finding they can train others to do their job well. Now you're getting into that reproduction level that we talked about in our last session. Level 4 is the growth that takes them to a higher job. In other words, they go up in the company because they have capacity and because they're learning and they're growing. And level 5 is a growth that allows them to take others higher. Oh, isn't that a wonderful area? Not only are they going higher, but they reproduce so well and they model so well and they mentor so well that you watch them go up in the organization, but guess what? They're taking people up in the organization with them. What a wonderful thing to happen. Now, the highest level, number 6, is a growth that allows them to handle any job. This becomes a very valuable player in your company. No matter where you put them, they're going to succeed. No matter where you place them, they're going to excel. Now, what I have to help you with in this area of mentoring is, somewhere when you mentor a person, they're going to be in one of these levels. And your question is not only what level are they on, but how much capacity they have. And your goal is obviously to take them as high as you possibly can take them. Now, let me give you some observations about this chart. Observation number 1. Levels 1 and 2 will possibly provide producers, but not reproducers. Observation number 2, level 3 is where a producer becomes a reproducer. Observation number 3 is on level 4 as a result of a person's growth potential and production. And finally, number 4, level number 5 is where a reproducer becomes a most valuable player. Now, we've talked so far about the 5-step process of turning producers into reproducers. 1 is I model, 2 is I mentor. The modeling is the visualization of the leadership that you want in your organization. The mentoring is where you internalize for people what they already see. Now, the third phase is the I monitor. And monitoring becomes a two-way street. You're now monitoring how they're doing. This is a time of accountability. This is a time of assessment. Zig Ziglar defined personal success this way. Success is the maximum utilization of the ability that you have. I would like to define organization success the following. Success is the maximum utilization of the abilities of those within your organization. And this is key, maximizing everybody in your organization to get them to fulfill their greatest potential together. And that is impossible without evaluating people. For example, one of the organizations I lead is called Equip. And over the next 6 years, we are mentoring, training, resourcing 1 million leaders internationally. What we do is we go into a country, for example, the Philippines, and we get a large group of leaders together and we train them. And then they each go out and train for the next 6 months, 25 leaders under their belt, and then they come back for the next 6 months after that 6-month period for a second training. We do this for 3 years. In other words, we go into the same area and train the same people with 6 different leadership workbooks. And every time they come back, now here's where the monitoring comes in. What we have found is this. The first time we give them the leadership workbook, they go out, they go take their 25 and they lead. Guess what happens? When they come back the next 6 months, they have all kinds of questions. Oh my goodness, this happened, and when I taught this person responded that way. What do? We monitor for them. We help them assess, we help them to evaluate. This is where leadership training, by the way, is at its very best. It's not in a lesson like this. Leadership training is its very best when you go out and teach the lesson, and the questions that are raised really is the essence of leadership and leadership training and leadership development. And that I monitor stage is there. Now, every potential leader needs the following things. Tim Elmore, who I've had privilege for over 20 years to be a mentor for, and I've developed him in leadership. These are his ideas, and they're good ones. Every potential leader needs handles. This is when you distill truth into bite-sized principles so that they can apply those principles. All good mentors can put life lessons into a nutshell that is transferable. And the question is the apprentice fleshing out those transferable principles? Then every potential leader needs laboratories. This is another role where we provide a place where that we can practice the principles that we're learning, but it's got to be a safe place. It's got to be a safe place. It's got to be a place where we can learn and grow and feel comfortable with. And the question is, have I provided that safe environment so that the apprentice can take the risk that I want them to take? Thirdly, every apprentice needs roadmaps. All good mentors furnish direction for life. These are compasses or roadmaps which provide options to their destination. The question is the apprentice following the game plan and demonstrating some creativity as you lay out the roadmap to guide them? Number 4 is roots. This gives the solid foundation from which a person can build their life. It represents the stability and security necessary for us to grow and for us to flourish. And the question is, has the apprentice demonstrated security that fosters growth? And finally, number 5 is wings. These represent the ability to see new horizons, to enable the mentoree to fly and achieve beyond what they ever could have imagined that they could have done alone. And the question is, does the apprentice realize their development is a result of a mentoring relationships? I want to encourage you in monitoring people to make sure you provide those 5 things for them. Handles for them to understand what they should do, laboratories which are safe for them to try out the things which you are teaching, roadmaps which give them tremendous direction, roots which give them the security, and wings which allow them to fly. Okay. The 4th step in developing leaders around you, the 4th step is I motivate. I become what I call an empowering leader. I empower others to grow and develop and learn and be the leaders that they possibly can be. And I put in here some ways to evaluate yourself as an empowering leader. And I just want to walk you through it real quickly. Put a number at the end of these questions from a 1 to 10, 1 being I never and 10 I always, okay? For example, number 1, do I believe in people and feel that they are an organization's most appreciable asset. Is that a 1 or is that a 10? It's wonderful when people believe in their leader, but it's even more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. Number 2, do I feel that team leadership can accomplish more than individual leadership? Do I really believe in the team concept, or am I still kind of wanting to have myself as the leader and have a whole bunch of people in my department follow me? Number 3, do I look for potential leaders and quickly assimilate them into the organization? Number 4, do I desire to raise others above my own level of leadership? Wow, that's a question you're going to have to take some time on. What happens when I bring somebody into my department and they really show great potential, all of a sudden I realize they're quicker than I am? Am I going to allow that person to really reach their potential, or am I going to then begin to do what so many insecure positional leaders do? Am I going to begin to try to put them in a corner and contain them so that I can continually have the position and the influence in my life? Number 5, do I invest time developing people that have leadership potential? Where am I spending my time? Am I spending my time with people who have leadership potential? That's absolutely huge. Number 6, do I enjoy watching others get credit for what I taught them? Or do I want to get the credit? Mark Twain said, it's amazing what can be accomplished if it doesn't matter who gets the credit. Number 7, do I allow others the freedom of personality and process? Or do I have to be in control? These are great questions. These are great empowerment questions. Number 8, do I give my influence publicly to potential leaders as much as possible? Now that's very important, because what I have found is it's important. If I have somebody that I'm developing, I'm leading, one of the most important things for me to do is to go to his or her family and let them know how good they're doing. And it's always important to do it in front of the person. Whenever I have one of my potential leaders, for example, and their spouse is with them, I always love to go and let the spouse know what a good job they're doing for me, because that's very, very important. Number 9, do I plan to have others take my present position? In other words, am I trying to work myself out of a job? Oh my goodness. We better not go there, have we, huh? And number 10, do I hand the leadership baton off to a teammate and truly root for him or her? We've all heard the expression, haven't we? Have we all heard the expression, it's lonely at the top? Recently I heard somebody say, it's lonely at the top, so you better take people with you. Don't go there alone. Don't get to the top all alone. In your notes, go to the people, live among them, learn from them, love them, start with what they know, build on what they have. But the best leaders, when their task is accomplished, their work is done, the people will remark, we have done it ourselves. How many of you, when you were kids, let's do a little survey here. How many of you played the follow the leader game? Huh? Did you play that game? Huh? Didn't you love being the leader? Think about it when you were the leader. What did you try to do? You tried to keep those who were following you from becoming the leader. Isn't that right? It should have been called follow the leader but never become the leader game. And you know, you would do something, they'd do it, and they could repeat it. And what would you do? You'd finally find something they couldn't do. You know what I'm saying? And then you would just, and whenever they got real close to getting your position, you just do what they couldn't do, and boy, you got your position again. You know what? I have become convinced that one of the reasons we don't develop leaders is because we played that game when we were kids. And we've never known the joy of letting someone else lead because we developed them. And we've tried to protect our turf. Well, there's one more thing I want to say about training and developing leaders, and that is, if you do the first 4 things, then number 5, we multiply. Now all of a sudden it goes from I'm modeling for a person, or I'm mentoring that person, or I'm monitoring and helping them or motivating them. Now we're beginning to multiply. And the levels of leadership again, the entry level is where the leaders know where they're going. In other words, I know where I'm going, so that's the entry level of my leadership. But then the credibility level is leaders are able to take themselves there. Not only do I know where I'm going, but I'm able to take myself there. When I can take myself there, I can come back to you and I can have credibility because I can tell you I've been there. Then the accepted level of leadership is where leaders are able to take their followers there with them. And that's, to me, the proof of leadership. It's not that you've been there to the top of the mountain, but have you taken people to the top of the mountain with you? And the highest level is when leaders are able to take other leaders to the top of the mountain. And that's where we're going. We're going for the very highest level of leadership. You not only know where you're going, and you've been there, and you've not only taken followers there, but now you're starting to take leaders there. See, the function of a leader is to produce more leaders, not more followers. And equipping is a three-step process. Developing leaders is a three-step process. Number one is the equipper. It starts with you. It starts with me. And I want to encourage you, as you've watched this series on developing the leaders around you and turning producers into reproducers, I want to encourage you. It starts with you. Leaders always go first. But the second step in the equipping process, after you have found the leader or the equipper, is the person being equipped, or the person being developed as a leader. In other words, it's not only me leading, but now I'm developing you to lead, and I'm equipping you to lead. And the third process, and the final process, I love this, is where the person who is being equipped will equip others. In other words, the leader that you're developing will turn around and develop other leaders. And now it has a multi-generational, now it has a compounding effect that is absolutely huge. It starts with the equipper or the trainer, but then it goes to the person being equipped, and now it goes to the person that person's going to equip, and all of a sudden you begin to see we are now developing a culture and an environment that is reproducing leaders. I close with this. Leaders should remind themselves of the words that Andrew Carnegie had inscribed on his tombstone. Here lies a man who knew how to enlist in his service better men than himself. The highest compliment you can be given as a leader is that you developed other leaders, some of which excelled your leadership, because that's the only way in your organization to leave a lasting legacy. Thank you very much.